Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Giving praise and honor to the Most High and thanking Him for our lives. You may be seated. Giving praise and honor to the King of the universe, the one that allows us to be here this day to worship before Him and to acknowledge how great He is in our lives for even giving us life, that we are able to worship before Him this day. Being able to come up and gather in places of worship, that the Most High allows the doors to be open in order that we may acknowledge Him. So even on this day, we ask that the Most High will continue to teach us the commandments, statutes, and judgments that are imperative for us to live by. You know, we heard many of those words this morning, and in many places that follow the same order of the service that we do here, we learned a lot of what we're supposed to be doing and a lot of what we're not supposed to be doing. But of course, we did read about some things that are not supposed to be done outside of the land of Yisrael. But today, the problem is a lot of people want to say none of the law could be done outside of the land. But it was specifically told to us what cannot be done outside of the land. And none of that included the eating of eating only clean and not eating unclean. That could be done anywhere. How we treat each other can be done anywhere. It's just the offerings that the Most High has commanded not to be done outside of the land. But what we're going to be reading in today, this afternoon, we are in the book of Ezekiel, starting with chapter 16, where Yehovah our God is continuing to talk about the children of Yisrael in a manner that is not good. And we're going to be reading about in this chapter and the next chapter, our time permitting. This one is longer than the next one, but both of them, the Most High is speaking in a parable, or speaking in allegory, and giving a dissertation based on maybe it will be something that will wake up the children of Yisrael. Because the Most High, even as we've been reading from the beginning of the book of Ezekiel, there hasn't been too many nice things said from the Most High to the children of Yisrael. And this is while the children of Yisrael are still in the land. Even Ezekiel was with a group of people that were captive in Babylon already, but that captivity was about to take its full turn. The Most High gave an opportunity for the children of Israel to return to Him. So where everybody wouldn't have to go into captivity, and where whoever didn't go into captivity wouldn't be killed by the sword, and whoever didn't get killed by the sword wouldn't have been killed by famine. Because those are the things that the Most High brought upon the children of Israel because we decided to turn away from the Most High. But even in this time that we're living in, where we understand that we are a captive people, that we are living in foreign lands, that the Most High has taken us out of the land that He has given us as an inheritance, that the only way that we can return to the land is, first of all, returning to the Most High. And the only way to return to the Most High is by returning to His word. So even today, we ask that the Most High would once again enlighten our minds, that He would teach us the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding necessary in order for us to make progress in our lives before Him. Because He is the one that gives us everything that we have. And we have to appreciate everything that the Most High has given us. And as the Most High continues to give us more, we have to do more for the Most High. I heard a example this morning of how we, a way that we've been failing the Most High. Where if you think about it in times past, many houses of worship were filled with people. Probably when you were growing up, your place of worship was full with people. Many people that are probably in their 30s, 40s, 50s remember their houses of worship being filled with people. But back then, there were less vehicles. Today, almost everybody has a vehicle, but nobody's coming out to the house of worship. Where there was a time where there were no vehicles, but everybody still made their way to a house of worship. So the more that the Most High has given unto us, we have to give Him more, and not make excuses of why we can't worship, when a lot of the excuses that people use today were not even in existence back then, because people didn't even have the things to say that they did not have those things in order to make it. They just made their way out to a house of worship. So we thank the Most High God for allowing us to even hear messages such as that during this time, that He's allowing our minds to be open, and hopefully we are receptive to the messages that the Most High gives us even during this time. So even as we go into the book of Ezekiel chapter 16, and the Most High is comparing us to a category of people who we would not want to be categorized as, this is how the Most High thinks about us when we turn away from his commandments, statutes, and judgments. So once again, we're in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 16.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Again, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, call Jerusalem to know her abominations, and say, Thus saith Yahweh God unto Jerusalem, Thine origin and thy nativity is of the land of the Canaanite. The Amorite was thy father, and thy mother was a Hittite. And as for thy nativity in the day that thou was born, thy navel was not cut, neither wast thou washed in water for cleansing. Thou was not salted at all, nor swallowed at all. No eye pitied thee, to do any of these unto thee, to have compassion upon thee. But thou wast cast out in the open field in the loathsomeness of thy person in the day that thou wast born. And when I passed by thee, and saw thee wallowing in thy blood, and I said unto thee, In thy blood live. Yea, I said unto thee, In thy blood live.
So the Most High starts off speaking to the children of Israel, as it mentions that he says, cause Jerusalem, because at this time, Jerusalem is the last, even though, once again, Ezekiel is speaking amongst the captives in Babylon, in the land of Israel, Jerusalem is one of the last cities standing, because, as we read in the book of 2 Kings, that the northern tribes of the nation of Yisrael were already taken into captive by the Assyrians, and then it was just the kingdom of Judah, and then as the Babylonians were going down into the territory of Judah, people started fleeing the fields and the cities in Judah, going to dwell in the city of Jerusalem. So now Jerusalem is the last city standing. Of course, it's the capital city of the kingdom of Judah. It's also where the house of God is. So now, even with being within that capital city or within that house, as it was read in the chapters prior to that, that the children of Israel were still doing evil in the house of God. So now the Most High is speaking in an allegory concerning the children of Israel on how we were born. But it's saying that, or the Most High is saying that the land itself, remember before we entered into the land and were given the opportunity to take over, there were Canaanites in the land. So as we read all throughout the book of Exodus, and even as we read this, this morning in the portions from Exodus all the way to Deuteronomy, that the Most High gave us the land of the Canaanites and the Amorites. So that's why the Most High is giving a statement saying that our nativity is the land of Canaan, that the Amorite was our father and our mother was a Hittite, because those were the original inhabitants of the land. But the Most High is saying that within a land of iniquitous people, he saw us. But once again, we know historically the Most High brought us out of Egypt and brought us into that land, and he caused us to live. So he's speaking about us as a baby that is born that no one took care of. So when a baby is born, it's surrounded by blood. So for those that are mothers, you know that, when you see the baby and it gets cute after a while, but initially you'll see a lot of blood and it has to be cleaned up. So the Most High is saying that there was nobody to clean us up. So the Most High is saying he's the one that took care of us. He saw us being born and surrounded by that blood. And he said, even with all that blood around us, he breathed life within us and told us to live. Continue.
7. I caused thee to increase even as the growth of the field. And thou didst increase and grow up, and thou camest to excellent beauty. Thy breasts were fashioned, and thy hair was grown, yet thou wast naked and bare. Now when I passed by thee, and looked upon thee, and behold, thy time was a time of love, I spread my skirt over thee, and covered thy nakedness. Yea, I swore unto thee, and entered into a covenant with thee, saith Jehovah God, and thou became mine. Then washed I thee with water. Yea, I cleansed away thy blood from thee, and I anointed thee with oil. I clothed thee also with richly woven work, and shod thee with sealskin. And I would fine linen, and I wound fine linen about thy head, and covered thee with silk. I decked thee also with ornaments, and I put bracelets upon thy hands, and a chain on thy neck. And I put a ring upon thy nose, and earrings in thy ears, and a beautiful crown upon thy head.
So the Most High, once again, at this point, he's speaking to the children of Israel, as he mentions Jerusalem as a father is taking care of a child.
Right.
The scenario is going to switch as we get through this chapter, but as a father, he's looking at the child and referencing the child as she, which is once again, because when the scenario switches later on, we understand why. But the Most High saw us being born, because once again, he's the one that brought us into existence. And as he said, he saw us within our blood, and he cleaned us up. But just like a baby is born, when you clean up all the blood, the baby is still naked. So the Most High is saying that he's the one that covered us.
Right.
He's the one that put clothes upon us and put all of these beautiful clothes upon us. So he took care of us as a father, taking care of his daughter, making sure that the daughter is fully taken care of by clothing the daughter, and also putting jewelry upon the daughter as the daughter grows up, and putting a crown on the head, because once again, we would be a princess to the God of the universe. But once again, the scenario is going to change. And of course, within that we just read, which may be a question that people had asked at some point, because it mentions sealskin in this in the chapter. But that's just a translation, because the word in the Hebrew is takash, which is not sealskin. So we read about takash skins when we read about the building of the tabernacle in the desert. And the best explanation that we can give is that it's a blue dyed leather. So the Most High covered us with all types of clothing, with silk, with the scarlet, with the leather, all types of jewelry, as he's mentioned, putting jewelry on our wrists, putting a crown upon our head, putting jewels in our nose. So when you see people today, or you see people throughout, black people throughout history, and how wearing types of jewelry all over, this is just us reverting back to our nativity, and how the Most High said that he dressed us and how he took care of us. So these are the things that we would want to return to also. But it's not also the look that we want to return to. We also want to return to the righteousness that we're supposed to have as well, that the Most High is saying that we initially had, but we decided to go astray. Continue.
Thus was thou decked with gold and silver, and thy raiment was of fine linen, and silk, and richly woven work. Thou didst eat fine flour and honey and oil, and thou didst wax exceeding beautiful, and thou was meet for royal estate. And thy renown went forth among the nations for thy beauty, for it was perfect through my splendor which I have put upon thee, saith Jehovah God.
So once again, our splendor is the splendor of the Most High.
Of the Most High, right.
So we don't have any glory or honor on our own. It's because the Most High allows us to be honored. That's the way that we become honored in the sight of the nations. So when the Most High is saying that we, among the nations, we were beautiful, because the Most High made us beautiful. When we had nothing, the Most High gave us everything. Think about in your own life, when you go through situations and you have nothing, and then later on in life, all you could do is give thanks to the Most High. When there might have been a time where you had nothing to eat, but now you're eating on a regular basis, except for Yom Kippur, which is about a month and 10 days from now, 11 days from now. That's probably the day that that's the day that you're not going to eat, but you are able to eat all the other days. But there are still hungry people out there in the world. There are still homeless people out there in the world. There are still people out there that don't have clothes to wear. So we have to appreciate what the Most High has done for us. So even there are many of us, as Maurice Ryan spoke about his illness earlier, that he's healed now. And he's able to go about and give praise and honor to the Most High for being able to go through these things. Because we reference the Most High as our sustainer. So as we reference him as our sustainer, that means we are sustained. When we reference him as our healer, it doesn't mean that we won't get sick. But we reference him as a healer, because we're going to get sick, and then we thank him for healing us. Amen. So the Most High, as he's mentioning here for the children of Yisrael, and the prophet Ezekiel is speaking to those that are still left in Jerusalem, that they have to realize where all of their food, clothing, and shelter came from. And because they didn't realize that, as this chapter goes on, they start to forget, or I should say we start to forget, or started to forget, where everything that we have, where it came from. And that's where the problem begins, because now once we start to forget where everything we have came from, and even beyond that, attribute the things that we got to someone else, that's where the problem comes in. So the Most High said that he allowed us to grow up, and in the sight of all the nations, nobody could touch us, nobody looked like us, nobody had knowledge like us, nobody had wisdom like us. There was no nation upon the face of the earth that was like Yisrael, because there's no God in the heavens above like Jehovah God. Amen. So when he chooses a nation, he's going to make sure that he takes care of that nation that he calls his firstborn. Continue.
But thou didst trust in thy beauty and play the harlot because of thy renown, and didst pour out thy harlotries on every one that passed by. His it was. And thou didst take of thy garments, and didst make for thee high places decked with divers colors, and display the harlot upon them. The like thing shall not come, neither shall it be so. Thou didst also take thy fair jewels of my gold and of my silver, which I had given thee, and made it for thee images of men, and display the harlot with them. And thou didst take thy richly woven garments, and cover them, and didst set mine oil and mine incense before them. My bread also which I gave thee, fine flour and oil and honey, wherewith I fed thee, thou didst even set it before them for a sweet savor, and thus it was, saith Jehovah God.
So Jehovah is saying that as we grew up, and once again referencing the children of Israel as a daughter that he took care of, then we grew up, and then we didn't pay homage to the God that created the heavens and the earth, the God that gave us everything. So we acknowledge that we had the clothing. We acknowledge that we had the gold and the silver. We acknowledge that we had the food. But we started to attribute those things to other gods. And that's why the Most High said that we started to play the harlot, because we grew up, and instead of giving the praise to the Jehovah God who gave us everything, we started to give praise to gods that never existed, and gods that we give life to, because once again, there is no God beside Jehovah.
Amen.
So once again, we start to give life to other gods when we praise other gods, because once again, those gods never existed. So the gold and the silver that God gave us, all of the gold and the silver and the precious materials that are within this earth, we take that and start to make images. So once again, when you think about it, we're supposed to serve the true and the living God who we cannot see, the God that made everything. But we take the things, the materials that God has given us to make gods. So we existed as human beings before the gods that we bow down and worship, because we make those gods. And that's when the Most High is looking at us and looking at us as though we're crazy. Because we're cutting down trees that Jehovah God made and making idols. Right. Those gods didn't exist until you cut down that tree and fashion that idol or that image of a man, as it said here. That God that people worship didn't exist until human beings took the gold that Jehovah God made and fashioned it after the image of a man to bow down to. So once again, there were human beings on this earth before these other gods existed.
Right.
But there's only one God who lives, continues to live, and who has always lived before any human being existed, and that is Jehovah God that we're speaking about, and that is speaking to us within this chapter. And he's talking about how, once again, it's harlotry because we grow up. The children of Israel, we grew up, and not realizing that Jehovah God took care of us, but start to attribute everything that he gave us to false gods. So once again, we took the gold, the silver, and all of the bread. It mentions here that we took the bread that the Most High gave us and start to feed gods who have mouths on their statues, but they can't eat that. But we start to take the bread that Jehovah God gave us to sustain our lives and put it before idols. Because once again, you see those things today, that people have idols and statues, and they put bread and all types of food before it, but those statues can't eat those things that people put before it. And you see today that, and as God says, that we take incense and burn it to strange gods. God gave us those incense, gave us those things that we could burn, to purify the air, to smell good, things like that. But we take those things and burn it to false gods, or to drive away evil spirits, or to do things that the Most High God commanded us not to do.
Contrary.
We take everything that the Most High gave us and utilize it to do evil, and that's what the Most High God is telling us at this time. Continue.
Verse 20. Moreover, thou hast taken thy sons and thy daughters whom thou hast born unto me, and these hast thou sacrificed unto them to be devoured. With thy harlotries a small matter, that thou hast slain my children and delivered them up and set them apart unto them. And in all thine abominations and thy harlotries, thou hast not remembered the days of thy youth, when thou wast naked and bare and was wallowing in thy blood.
So Jehovah God is trying to remind us of the time when we had nothing. Because the time that we had nothing, all we could realize is that Jehovah God is providing for us. And as he was providing for us, it's like, once again, as a child that is growing up. So Jehovah God is looking at us as, once again, parents are looking at their children who, before they're able to speak, are taking care of them. Taking care of their child, once again, who can't speak. They know when they're crying, they hear when they're crying, they take care of them, they clothe them, they feed them and everything. But now when the child grows up and is able to speak and is able to dress themselves, they start to spurn their parents and take everything that the parents gave them and utilize it or give it on to, or attribute it to someone else. And that's what caused the Most High God to become angry with us, because we didn't remember the time when we had nothing. So think about your lives, the times when you had nothing. And now you're here today in a house of worship, being able to praise the Most High God. So never forget the time when you had nothing. The same energy that you had when you had nothing to praise the Most High God, you continue to have that same energy now that you have a lot. Because once again, the Most High could take all of that away from us. And we're going to see, as the Most High God is going to speak to us in this chapter, how he will take everything away from us. And then we're going to have to see what's going to happen to us when we have nothing once again. Who are we going to turn to when we have nothing once again? Continue.
And it came to pass after all thy wickedness. Woe, woe unto thee, saith Jehovah God, that thou hast built unto thee an eminent place, and hast made thee a lofty place in every street. That hast built thy lofty place at every head of the way, and hast made thy beauty an abomination, and hast opened thy feet to everyone that passed by, and multiplied thy harlotry.
So now Most High God is being more descriptive as he's talking about us in our harlotry. Because he's saying that we took the materials that that he gave us, and we start to build houses of worship. As we read in the book of Jeremiah, as many as the streets of Jerusalem, so were the gods of Jerusalem. Because on every street in Jerusalem, there was a house of worship. And not a house of worship to the true and the living God.
Right.
It's just like today in every street, you could go throughout all of New York City, probably every city, everybody that's watching here, every city, there's a house of worship to a false God.
Right.
And that's what's happening. That's what caused the Most High God to become angry with us. And he's saying that, and he once again comparing us to a harlot. As he says here, we open our feet to everyone that passes by. Because we're in everybody's church, we're in everybody's mosque, we're in everybody's place of worship, except turning to the house of God, the house of the true and the living God. So the Most High being very descriptive of us, because a harlot is one that opens her feet to everybody that passes by. So Jehovah God is saying that that's how we are in his sight. Because we open our feet to every false god that exists upon the face of the earth. And that's what's causing the Most High God to become angry, because Jehovah God is the one that gave us everything. So we should only be bowing down and worshiping the true and the living God, and not allowing the false gods that pass by to enter into us. Continue.
Thou hast also played the harlot with the Egyptians. Thy neighbor is great of flesh, and hast multiplied thy harlotry to provoke me. Behold, therefore I have stretched out my hand over thee, and have diminished thine allowance, and delivered thee unto the will of them that hate thee, the daughters of the Philistines that are ashamed of thy lewd way. Thou hast played the harlot also with the Assyrians, without having enough. Yea, thou hast played the harlot with them, and yet thou was not satisfied. Thou hast, moreover, multiplied thy harlotry with the land of traffic, even with Chaldea. And yet thou dost not have enough herewith. How weak is thy heart, saith Jehovah God, seeing thou doest all these things, the work of a wanton harlot, and that thou buildest thy eminent place in the head of every way, and makest thy lofty place in every street, and has not been as a harlot that enhanceth her higher. So
once again, Most High God's being very descriptive as he goes along and talks about the people that we played the harlot with. So once again, with the Egyptians, and then we went to the Philistines, to the Assyrians, to the Chaldeans. These are the people that we played the harlot with, but these are also the same people that we were held captive by. So the Most High is saying that we decided to open our feet to them, but they took advantage of us and took us into captivity. And that's what the Most High God allowed to happen to us, because we decided to turn to them, and because we decided to give unto them the things that the Most High God has given unto us. So he's saying that because we decided to open our feet to the Egyptians, to the Philistines, to the Assyrians, to the Chaldeans, these are the people that took us into captivity. We were held captive within our own land by the Philistines. And the Chaldeans or the Babylonians who came in and swept us into captivity. So all of the people that we tried to appease by bowing down to their gods and by entering into their forms of worship, these are the same people that took advantage of us. So once again, as the Most High God is comparing us to a harlot that goes aside to every way, and eventually is being taken advantage by every but one that the harlot decided to go astray to. So therefore, there's no reason to go astray. So we have to find our way back to the Most High. Because as he said earlier, we forgot the time when we were naked and bare, and we was wallowing in our blood. We have to remember the one that cleaned us up when we were wallowing in our blood. We have to remember the one that put clothes upon us when we were naked. We have to remember the one that gave us food when we were hungry, and not take the things that the Most High God gave us to give it unto other people. And he mentioned also that the children that the harlot had, the children of Yisrael had, we sacrificed them to false gods. But God said that those are his children, because we all belong to the Most High. So when we were sacrificing our children to false gods, God became more angry, because Jehovah God is saying, those are my children that you're taking away. There were people upon the face of the earth that would love to have children. There were women on this earth that are barren. There were men that have no children, that would love to have children. But Jehovah God is saying that those that had children were taking their children and sacrificing them to false gods, basically killing them in the name of a false god. The children that the Most High blessed them with. Opportunities that there are people on this earth that don't have. Just like there are many people that would love to be eating the food that we're eating today. But we take our food and put it before idols who cannot eat. There are people that would love to have the jewelry and the stuff that they see us with. But we take that and deck it on idols that cannot feel the jewelry that's going upon them. That's how the Most High God is trying to describe what we're doing in his sight. Continue.
Thy wife that committeth adultery, that taketh strangers instead of thy husband. To all harlots gifts are given, but thou hast given thy gifts to all thy lovers, and hast bribed them to come unto thee from every side in thy harlotry.
So now the scenario changes, because God looked at us, or was comparing us to a child that was born as a daughter that he raised up. But we also know that Jehovah God is the husband of the children of Yisrael. So now he's referencing us within this scenario as a wife that goes astray into harlotry. And he's saying that usually when a harlot goes astray, even if a harlot opens her feet to everybody that passes by, that there's some hire that's given unto her. But he's saying for the children of Yisrael, as we go aside into harlotry, we're not getting paid for going astray. So he's saying, well, what are you doing that for? What's the purpose of going astray if you're not getting paid for it? Because he's saying at least a harlot, when she goes astray, gets paid for what she does. But we do it for free. For free. And that's what, and the Most I gotta say, at least do it for something. Because if you're gonna give away all this jewelry, and he's basically saying that the harlot is paying her pimp or her John for the work. Instead of vice versa. The John is supposed to pay the harlot, but the harlot is paying the John for the work. And God is saying we totally confused the whole game. That's not even a game. That's not even a ninth inning. We don't know what inning that game is on, because we just completely changed the game by doing things like that where you have now the harlot is paying for the work, and that's opposed to vice versa. Continue.
And the contrary is in thee from other women, and that thou didst solicit to harlotry and was not solicited, and in that thou givest hire and no hire is given unto thee. Thus thou art contrary. Wherefore, O harlot, hear the word of Jehovah. Thus saith Jehovah God, because thy filthiness was poured out, and thy nakedness uncovered through thy harlotries with thy lovers, and because all of thy idols of thy abominations, and for the blood of thy children, thou didst give them, thou didst give unto them. Therefore, behold, I will gather all thy lovers, unto whom thou hast been pleasant, and all them that thou hast loved, with all them that thou hast hated. I will even gather them against thee from every side, and will uncover thy nakedness unto them, that they may see all thy nakedness. And I will judge thee, as women that break wedlock, and shed blood are judged. And I will bring upon thee the blood of fury and jealousy. So
Most High was saying that he's now going to cause us to be judged in the sight of all nations. So when we look at the children of Israel today, and when we look at ourselves, it's because the Most High is judging us in the sight of all nations. Because the things that we did in secret that was shameful, the Most High is exposing us to the entire world and showing our entire shame to the entire world because of the things that we did was shameful in his sight. And the things that it mentioned earlier, that there were things that we did that the Philistines considered was shameful, or they considered lewd, and we decided to surpass them. There were things that people do today that once we decide to jump into it, we want to outdo everybody in those things. So there are lewd people on this earth. But when the children of Israel decide to jump into something, we decide to outdo everybody in their lewdness. And the Most High is saying that if that's the path that we want to go in, then he would expose us in the sight of all people. So when we think about even individually, the things that we may do secretly, just know that if we continue to do those things secretly that are shameful and lewd in the sight of the Most High, he will expose it in the sight of all people. And then what's going to happen at that time once you're exposed in the sight of everybody? So we have an opportunity now to return to the Most High while he is not exposing us and making sure that we're doing the right thing. Because there will come a time, as he said here, because once again, these are things that the Most High is speaking into existence. So once he speaks it into existence, it will happen. And that's why time and time again, every now and then within the nation, we're always hearing about something happening. We're always hearing about some lewdness that are taking place, or some shameful act that people are doing. Because the Most High is exposing people in the sight of everybody. And as the nation of Israel, he's exposing us to the entire world. Because he said that we were a beautiful people, and we were perfect. And people, they envied us because of everything that the Most High God gave us. But we see that exposure today, not just due to slavery, but that exposure into the abominable practices that we decide to go into, that the Most High is exposing once again to the world. Continue.
I will also give thee into their hand, and they shall throw down thy eminent place, and break down thy lofty places. And they shall strip thee of thy clothes, and take thy fair jewels, and they shall leave thee naked and bare. They shall also bring up an assembly against thee, And they shall stone them with stones and thrust thee through with their swords. And they shall burn thy houses with fire, and execute judgments upon thee in the sight of many women, children. And thou art the sister of thy sisters, who loathe their husbands and their children. Your mother was a Hittite, and your father an Amorite, and thine elder sister is Samaria, that dwelleth at thy left hand, she and her daughters. And thy younger sister that dwelleth in thy right hand is Sodom and her daughters. Yet hast thou not walked in their ways, nor done after their abominations. But in a very little while thou didst deal more corruptly than they in all thy ways.
And when we actually get to Ezekiel chapter 18, what the parents do is not supposed to be placed upon the children. But what's happening here, God is saying that you're just like your parents. And when people see the things that you do, they're going to say, oh, well, you're just like your parent. Because your parents were lewd and the child is lewd, so that all they're doing is comparing it to your parent, even though everybody's supposed to be standing on their own sin or their own merit. But God is saying here, because our nativity, as he said in the beginning of the chapter, is of the Amorites and the Hittites. And he says here, our older sister Samaria, which is the northern tribe of Yisrael, which was taken into captivity, that God is saying that people are just going to compare us to our parentage, and compare us to our siblings, when really that's not what's supposed to happen. But we didn't turn to good, but we decided to follow the evil practices of our parents and our siblings. Continue.
As I live, saith Jehovah God, Sodom thy sister have not done, she nor her daughters as thou hast done, thou and thy daughters. Behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom. Pride, fullness of bread, and careless ease was in her and in her daughters. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. And they were haughty and committed abomination before me. Therefore I removed them when I saw it. So
God is saying that, and we've heard this phrase before, that we did worse than Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right.
When you think about what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah, we think about the abominable practices that were happening in Sodom and Gomorrah. We think about the judgment that God put upon Sodom and Gomorrah, the fire, the brimstone, the salt, that nothing is allowed to grow there today, and how what is called the salt sea, people can't actually drown, so to speak, within that. Of course, if they stay down for too long. But it's, people say it's so thick that you could just actually, float on the top.
Wow.
So when you think about that judgment that the Most High put upon Sodom and Gomorrah, he says that they didn't even do as much as we do today.
Wow.
Think about how abominable our practices are today. There are abominable people on this world. But when you think about the real abominable people, like when you think about homosexuality, you have the faces of homosexuality like RuPaul, Little Nas X, Billy Porter. So when you think about homosexuality, you think about melanated people. So imagine the type of judgment that the Most High is putting upon us, where we become the face of abomination.
Wow.
There are homosexuals in all nationalities. But when you think about socially who is homosexual, you see one of us, unfortunately.
Right.
Because the Most High is exposing us to the entire world. So that's when God says he's going to do something, he's actually going to do it. Wow. And once again, we decide to do it more than everybody else. Because you have your homosexuals and other nationalities, and they'll still wear regular clothes. But when it comes to our people, we have to be flamboyant. Continue.
Neither, verse 51, neither hath Samaria committed even half of thy sins, but thou hast multiplied thine abominations more than they, and hast justified thy sisters by all thine abominations which thou hast done. Thou also bear thine own shame, and that thou hast given judgment for thy sisters. Do thy sins that thou hast committed more abominable than they are more righteous than thou. Yea, be thou also confounded, and bear thy shame in that thou hast justified thy sisters.
And toward Samaria, once again, which is the northern tribes of Israel, which were already taken into captivity at this time by the Assyrians. But God brought, once again, judgment upon Sodom and Gomorrah. God brought judgment upon the northern tribes of Israel by taking them into captivity. And God is saying, we didn't do half of the sins that those people did. So imagine the judgment that's going to come upon all of us as a result of that. And that's what led to the things that we see today and within our own history, such as the transatlantic slave trade, of how the Most High allowed us to be packed on ships and to be exposed in the sight of all nations, and where we may be stronger than other people, how people that are weaker than us were able to take us into captivity, hundreds on a boat, with a boat that came with just 10 people. Because the Most High allowed us to be exposed in the sight of all people, and inside of all people, the Most High put his judgment upon us. Continue.
And I will turn their captivity, the captivity of Sodom and her daughters, and the captivity of Samaria and her daughters, and the captivity of thy captives in the midst of them, that thou mayest bear thine own shame and mayest be ashamed because of all that thou hast done, and that thou art a comfort unto them. And thy sisters Sodom and her daughters shall return to their former state, and Samaria and her daughters shall return to their former state, and thou and thy daughters shall return to your former state. But thy sister Sodom was not mentioned by thy mouth in the day of thy pride, before thy wickedness was uncovered, as at the time of the taunt of the daughters of Aram, and of all that thou art round about her, the daughters of the Philistines that have thee in disdain round about. Thou hast borne thy lewdness and thine abomination, saith Jehovah.
So this judgment is not going to be on us forever. But Sodom and Gomorrah is always going to be destroyed. All of the nations that God put judgment on is going to be destroyed forever. But Jehovah God has given us an opportunity. So that's why he's saying that Samaria will return. The children of Yisrael will return. We just have to bear our iniquity for the time. But as we're bearing our iniquity, it doesn't mean that we continue on in our iniquity. We have to take this opportunity to return to the Most High and turn to the Most High and to ask for forgiveness, ask for mercy, ask for compassion. But we turn to the Most High by fulfilling his commandments, statutes, and his judgments. Because the Most High God, as I said earlier, he'll be quiet when we start to execute judgment. We're not supposed to allow abominable practices within the nation of Israel. At all. And when we hear about something happening, things are supposed to be done about it. Else, if we don't do anything about it, God will do something about it. And when God does something about it, everybody's going to get exposed. So if you're worried about your shame being exposed so you don't want to expose anybody else, then think about the time when the Most High will expose everybody at the same time. Because one way or the other, some shame and some abomination is going to be exposed to everybody. Continue.
For thus saith Jehovah God, I will even deal with thee as thou hast done, who hast despised the oath and breaking the covenant. Nevertheless, I will remember my covenant with thee in the days of thy youth, and I will establish unto thee an everlasting covenant. Then shalt thou remember thy ways and be ashamed when thou shalt receive thy sisters, thine elder sisters, and thy younger, and I will give them unto thee for daughters, but not because of thy covenant. And I will establish my covenant with thee, and thou shalt know that I am Jehovah, that thou mayest remember and be confounded, and never open thy mouth any more because of thy shame. When I have forgiven thee all that, all that thou hast done, saith Jehovah God.
So we're going to continue into the next chapter, which will be a shorter chapter, and we have a fast reader today, so that's good. But we're going to just take like 30 seconds to think about the shameful things that you've done in your life. We don't want you to speak about it, but think about the shameful things that you've done in your life for about 30 seconds. All right, we don't have time for 30 seconds. But hopefully it would have taken you 30 seconds to think about something. If you thought about something real quick, then that's a real problem. But the things that you've done, and it don't matter how young y'all are, 13, y'all did some shameful things. Don't worry about it. We know that y'all did some shameful things. 12 years old, y'all did some shameful things as well that your parents don't know about. See, he's whispering in his ear about the things that he did. The things that you, I'm not going that far. But the things that y'all done, just don't return to those things again. That's just the main point. Think about the things that you've done that are shameful, but don't do them again. So when you leave this place or wherever you are that's watching, once this service is over, do not return to the abominable or lewd practices that you've done. Let the Most High cover that, especially as we are approaching the time of Yom Kippur, once again, which is about a month and 11 or 12 days from now. Because actually, new moon, I know I mentioned last week that it comes in tonight, but it actually comes in, that was my mistake, it comes in tomorrow night. So our new month, the 11th, the new month, Elul, the 6th month comes in tomorrow night. So that month is going to go through. And then on the 10th day of the 7th month will be Yom Kippur. But don't think about Yom Kippur as your salvation. Because not everybody makes it to Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur is not only about the expiation of sin, it's really about cleansing the house of God when it was standing, and cleansing the entire house of Yisrael. It's not a day of your personal redemption.
Right.
The day of your personal redemption is when you wake up in the morning. And once you wake up, you have to give thanks to the Most High that he allowed you to wake up. And when you think about the things that you've done that were abominable, lewd, and shameful, that you decide not to do those things anymore. And if you hear about anything that's abominable, lewd, and shameful in the nation, you actually do something about that. And even if you are not physically able to do something about that, you have a mouth that you can speak about it until something is done. So whether you're 12 years old, 15 years old, or 25 years old, when you hear about something shameful or abominable, you make sure that something is done about that.
Right.
And you don't allow things to pass. Because that is what caused the children of Israel to be in the predicament that we are in today, where the Most High is exposing all of our nakedness, all of our shame, and all of our abominations amongst each other and in the sight of the whole world. Continue.
Chapter 17. And the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, put forth a riddle and speak a parable unto the house of Yisrael, and say, Thus saith Yahweh God. A great eagle with great wings and long pinions full of feathers which had divers colors came unto Lebanon and took the top of the cedar. He cropped off the topmost of the young twigs thereof and carried it into the land of traffic. He sent it into a city of merchants. He took also of the seed of the land and planted it in the fruitful soil. He placed it beside many waters. He set it as a slip. And it grew and became spreading vine of low stature, whose tendrils might turn toward him, and the roots thereof be under him. So it became a vine, and brought forth branches, and shot forth sprigs.
So there's some parable that the Most High is speaking about is once again going to be about the children of Yisrael, and how he took care of us, and how he brought us up, and how he raised us, and how he allowed us to grow. As in the chapter prior, he raised us up as the time we were babies, bringing us out of the land of Egypt, taking care of us, and washing us of our blood, putting clothes upon us, and allowing us to grow. But we took that beauty and that splendor the Most High gave us and gave it to other people. So the Most High God has given another parable at the time, and now he's talking about us in terms of trees that are grown. How he picked us up from Lebanon, which is at this time that we're reading about, was a splendor in terms of trees on that part of the earth. In terms, people went there for trees in that middle, what they would call the Middle Eastern region, that a lot of people went there. So the Most High went, or he's showing that he went there and took, basically, tree, baby tree, and planted it in the land of traffic, which is actually the land of Canaan, and allowed that tree to grow. Continue.
There was also another great eagle with great wings and many feathers. And behold, this vine did bend its roots toward him, and shot forth its branches toward him from the beds of its plantation, that he might water it. It was planted in the good soil by many waters, that it might bring forth branches, and that it might bear fruit, that it might be a stately vine. Say thou, Thus saith Yahweh God, Shall it prosper? Shall he not pull up the roots thereof, and cut off the fruit thereof, that it wither? Yea, wither in all its sprouting leaves. Neither shall great power of much people be at hand, when it is plucked out by the roots thereof. Yea, behold, being planted, shall it prosper? Shall it not utterly wither when the east wind toucheth it, and the beds where it grew it shall wither? Because
trees, no matter how strong they may grow, the Most High can send his wind to knock it down. So the Most High allowed us to be prosperous in the land of Yisrael. But when we didn't take care of ourselves, even though we know that the Most High takes care of us, when we didn't take care of ourselves, and we allowed other people, the great eagle and other people to come and do what they did to us, we would not be prosperous unless we turn to the Most High. So the Most High, once again, compares us in this chapter to a vine that he allowed to grow up and to spring up, and who he took care of. But he's talking about the evil. He's comparing us to the parables about the evil that we did, and he's not allowing us to be prosperous in our evil that we do. Continue.
Moreover, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Say now to the rebellious house, Know ye not what these things mean? Tell them, Behold, the king of Babylon came to Jerusalem, and took the king thereof and the princes thereof, and brought them to him to Babylon. And he took up the seed royal and made a covenant with him, and brought him under an oath, and the mighty of the land he took away, that his might be a lowly kingdom, that it might not lift itself up, but that by keeping his covenant it might stand.
And he's talking about that initial wave that the Babylonians came into the land of Israel, because once again, you still had kings in the land of Israel during the time of Ezekiel. But the king of Babylon initially went in and took some of the people out, took some of the seed royal, as it mentions here, took some of the great people in order to make his kingdom great. Continue.
But he rebelled against him and sent his ambassadors into Egypt, that they might give him horses and much people. Shall he prosper? Shall he escape that doeth such things? Shall he break the covenant and yet escape? As I live, saith Yahweh God, surely in the place where the king dwelleth that made him king, whose oath he despised and whose covenant he broke, even with him in the midst of Babylon he shall die.
And also what God is talking about here is that when God sent Babylon into Israel to take us into captivity, that the kings that were there decided to go to Egypt for help. And that was the problem. So now God is saying, are we going to be prosperous in turning to another nation, because a northern nation is coming against us, so we go to a southern nation, when ultimately we're supposed to turn to Jehovah God. So we're not going to be prosperous, and even today we're not going to be prosperous looking to nations for our help. We have to realize that our help comes from the creator of the heavens and the earth. So these are some of the things that we have to learn today, that we are not supposed to look out to other nations for our help. Our assistance, once again, comes from the Most High God. So once we turn to the Most High God, he's the one that will assist us and allow us to prosper. But we're not going to be prosperous following after other nations,
right,
or looking to other nations for help, or looking to other nations for assistance, or looking to other nations to help us to do the things that we are fully capable of doing on our own. Continue.
Neither shall Pharaoh with his mighty army and great company succor him in the war, when they cast up mounds and build forts to cut off many souls, seeing he hath despised the oath by breaking the covenant, when lo, he had given his hand and have done all these things, he shall not escape. Therefore thus saith Yahweh God, as I live, surely mine oath that he hath despised, and my covenant that he hath broken, I will even bring it upon his own head. And I will spread my net upon him, and he shall be taken in my snare. And I will bring him to Babylon, and will plead with him there for his treachery that he hath committed against me. And all his mighty men and all his band shall fall by the sword. And they that remain shall be scattered toward every wind. And ye shall know that I, Yahweh, have spoken it.
So we went to Egypt to protect us from the Babylonians, and God is saying the Babylonians are still going to defeat us anyway.
Yep.
And because the Egyptians are only going to worry about themselves, because Babylon is going to come against Israel and Egypt. So when Babylon is coming against Israel and Egypt, and Israel has paid Egypt to help them in war, who do you think the Egyptians are going to help when Babylon is coming against Egypt? They're going to help themselves. So Egypt took all of the money, and that promise that was given to Egypt, they broke that, because when Babylon started coming against Egypt, they're not worried about saving Israel, they're worried about saving themselves.
Right.
So the same people that we try to protect ourselves from by hiring someone else, God is saying those people are going to come against you anyway. So the source of our problems is also the source of our help. So once we turn to the Most High God and acknowledge him in all the things that happen to us, then we return to him. And once again, as the chapter prior says, we turn away from those abominable practices, those loose practices, and turn to do righteousness. Continue.
Thus saith Yahweh God, moreover I will take even I of the lofty top of the cedar and will set it. I will crop off the topmost of its young twigs, a tender one, and I will plant it upon a high mountain and eminent. In the mountain of the height of Yisrael will I plant it, and it shall bring forth boughs and bear fruit, and be a stately cedar, and under it shall dwell all fowl of every wing, and the shadow of the branches thereof they shall dwell. And all the trees of the field shall know that I, Yahweh, have brought down the high tree, have exalted the low tree, have dried up the green tree, and have made the dry tree to flourish. I, Yahweh, have spoken. I, Yahweh, have spoken and have done it. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. So that's the day that we awake, that all of those who are haughty, all of those that have their heads up, all of those that have their nose up, the Most High will bring them down. And all of those who are already down and lowly, the Most High will bring up. So all of us, all of the nation of Yisrael, we have been humbled in the sight of the Most High and the sight of all nations. But the Most High will eventually bring us up in the sight of all nations. So we just await that day that the Most High will bring us up, save us, and deliver us from all the problems and the troubles that we have. But we just have to stay the course and make sure that we are living righteously in the sight of the Most High and await the day that the Most High will save us. But once again, as we read throughout the book of Ezekiel, we're reading about a lot of the abominable practices that we did. We're reading about the Most High God calling us a rebellious nation, calling us an abominable nation, calling us a lewd nation. But these are the things that we have to read, see, and listen in order for us to have that wake-up call. And hopefully the Most High, the Most High's word will wake us up before he puts us to sleep forever. So we thank the Most High God for allowing us to be alive this day and allowing us to worship before him and thanking him for our lives. With that, say Shabbat Shalom to him.